Also this afternoon as well, we're focusing on that controversy surrounding the Achimato Forest. The Lands and Natural Resources Ministry says it is investigating claims that former Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, Kojo Usu-Efriye, popularly referred to as Sir John, gifted lands forming part of the Achimato Forest to his relatives. A photograph of a portion of Mr. Efriye's will went viral on social media on Sunday, revealing 3 different lands set to be situated within the Achimato Forest that has been distributed to some of his family members. This has sparked public criticism and allegations that the actual reason for government declassifying parts of the forest reserve was to make such allocations legal. The ministry says it is taking a serious view on the matter and that it will, in the coming days, or in fact, as we speak, has commenced investigations into the matter. So here it is, excerpt of that statement from the ministry for you. First of all, the ministry indicates that the attention of the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry has been drawn to a document making rounds on social media, which alleges that the late former Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, Kojo Usu-Efriye, had included portions of the Achimato Forest in his will and giving out same to individuals who are said to be related to him. Then the statement continues to indicate that the ministry takes a serious view of the allegations and has requested for all documents relating to the lands in question as part of an inquiry, initial inquiry, to ascertain the veracity of the claims. Now, considering that the issues form the basis for the allegation which predate the tenure of the current minister, Honorable Samuel Abu Jinapor, it is important that he is seized with the full facts to enable him take appropriate action if indeed there is any merit in the claims. Then it concludes by saying that the ministry assures the general public that the people of Ghana, that obviously it will ensure that the national interest is protected at all times, especially in matters pertaining to the Achimato Forest. So that's the clear indication we're getting from the ministry. However, if you're looking out for the purported will which has gone viral on social media, let's now take a look at some of the aspects of this will which is stirring the controversy on social media. We'll be bringing you details of it, details of what the former or the late Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, Sir John, purportedly willed to some of his relatives. So if you're looking for some of the breakdowns, here it is for you. First of all, if you look at, for instance, page 4, it indicates that I give my land, which is situated at the Achimato Forest in the name of JK Pro Limited and measuring some 5.541 acres to the following persons. Then it lists about 5 different individuals, including Elizabeth Asari, aka mother, and we also have Michael Owusu. We have 2 of his sons, actually. 3. There's also a daughter in there, Ivy Efriye. We have Eva, and then we have Yao Amwating Efriye also captured on the list. So about 5 individuals in all, part of the will which has gone viral, which many Ghanaians have been talking about. And then he's also purportedly giving portions of the land situated once more in the Achimato Forest in the name of Faso Limited, measuring some 0.987 acres to his nephew, Michael Owusu, and also Yabwedu. And then we have Kwabena Amwating, and the very operative word there is forever. So why would the former Chief Executive of the Forestry Commission will this forest reserve, which is now degazetted, as we are getting from government, forever to some individuals? That's what's stirring the controversy. Let's hear from Edem Senanu. He's with the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. They have some concerns, particularly when it comes to our asset declaration regime. They believe that this is a perfect or opportune moment for us to refine our laws and to push for more transparency in governance. Edem Senanu is co-chair of the group, is joining us now. Edem, thank you for your time here on The Pulse. So let's start off from this purported will which is making rounds on social media. We are not confirming that yet, particularly as we've not heard from the family. But, well, some would say that once there's no denial from the family, it appears that this is a legitimate claim. Are you surprised by what we're finding out on social media today?
Yeah, I'm not just surprised, I'm shocked. I mean, just stunned. On the back of an executive instrument that was just recently, as it were, brought into the public domain, to find that prior to this declassification of the reserve, people already laid claim to rights to sections of the forest. It's just stunning. It's just unbelievable. And it seems to me that if you find this, to the extent that it is a legitimate document we are looking at, then there's so much more we ought to be investigating. Who else is laying claim to sections of this forest? What else may have happened? And as you may know, I'm sure maybe perhaps later you refer to it, there's even a portion of a Ramsar site. I've done work in the environment, and Ramsar sites are globally significant biodiversity areas mapped out by the world that you've got to protect the flora and fauna there for the sake of humanity. And yet we find that part of this is being given out in somebody's personal will. It's just stunning.
But then beyond that, you believe, and your group believes, that this is the point where we need to reinforce our laws, particularly on the asset declaration regime. Exactly what changes are you on the lookout for?
Well, obviously, the current situation where one puts something into an envelope and it's sealed and it's with the Auditor General, and it's not available for the public to scrutinize and say, we realize that something is missing. And it doesn't provide opportunity for people to easily do a validation when the person is exiting public office. That does not provide a mechanism to prevent people from fraudulently, as it were, acquiring assets, acquiring investments, acquiring things that are belonging to the public and to the citizens of the state. So it's not a functional mechanism we have now. Ideally, everything should be public as it is in other jurisdictions, such that one can cross-check. What did he have when he came in 2016? In how many years did he acquire how much more? What did he have by 2019 or 2020? Are there legitimate sources from which he could have acquired these, or there is no basis for him to have been able to acquire all of this? You know, we need a very transparent system that allows for accountability. That's not what we have. And I think that absolutely, if we revisit the issue of our assets declaration and make it conform with what is international best practice, we'll give ourselves a much better environment within which to be able to hold public officers accountable.
And I'm not really sure of the specifics as to whether or not you're fixated on Sir John, or perhaps we need to do that going forward, particularly when we know, and Sam will tell you, he's deceased now. There's nothing really in this if we go after the property.
Well, it's obviously not just about Sir John. I mean, I think Sir John just, this particular episode with the documentation that's been put out just gives us a window to see what happens when you don't have an effective assets declaration regime. Countries that have managed to minimize this kind of activity, obviously, you have a system in place that allows people to cross-check. And, you know, with the competition that goes between political parties, one doesn't even have to blink your eye to know that somebody, after one government is out, is going to cross-check what did he file when he came in, what did she file, what's the state as they're going out when they did a counter-filing after exiting. Without the transparency, it's not going to happen. Patriotic-minded, spirited members of the nation who want to take this on board and ensure good governance will not have access to the information. So we really, really need to do this, not just because of this instance, even though I think that as Ghanaian citizens, we ought to be shocked. We ought to demand that this ought to be fully investigated, and anybody else who has gotten so-called rights to a forest that ought to be there as a greenbelt to protect this country, this city, let's name and shame them, and where they have to be found culpable, do so. Because obviously there will be some people alive probably also have documents similar to this one.
And Adam, this is where many say we've not paid much attention to. I mean, the statement we're getting from the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry. I wish we could just bring back that statement from the Lands Ministry indicating the minister's resolve on what it is that they intend to do, particularly the second point, or the very concluding points, which the minister says he's not responsible, or perhaps not entirely in his words, but all of these things that transpired did not happen when Samuel Abu-Jinapor was in office. So he's indicating to us clearly, and there you have it. And let me just try and quote as well. Considering that the issues that form the basis of the allegations predates the tenure of the current minister, Honorable Samuel Abu-Jinapor, MP, it is important that he is seized with the full facts to enable him take appropriate action if indeed there is any merit in the claims. For some, this is the minister running away from blame.
Yeah, in one sense it is. In another sense, yes, it is fact he's saying that some of the issues are in the past predating him. However, it is in the context that a week or two ago, we were, as it were, assailed with information from him about an instrument that is being passed, and he went at great length to try and tell us that the forest reserve is not being sold. We are only giving it back to the family that owned it because it wasn't used for its purpose. And we're all wondering, what exactly are they telling us? You know,
right.
It seems to me that the minister, irrespective of the fact that this predates him, ought to have done adequate due diligence. In fact, a very in-depth scrutiny of what has transpired in that space before, as it were, coming out to defend and say that nothing is being sold. He has a responsibility to the people. So whether this event predated him or not, unfortunately, he's going to be held responsible for the fact that he brought this out and he made a statement categorically saying that these lands were not being sold. Here we are, we find documentation suggesting otherwise. He's a minister, he's in government, and it is his government, if you look at the will, because Sir John was under this government. It's not looking good at all.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I'm glad he's saying that they're investigating. I'm not quite sure the good people of this country should be waiting forever to hear from him. I think that within a week, we ought to have full disclosure. And not just that. It appears to me that we need an independent entity, probably the special prosecutor, or better still, Trudge, digging into who else may have documentation like this saying that they have rights to acres or half an acre or whatever it is in the forest reserve. And that should lead us to take a second look at this whole issue of declassification of the Achimato Forest Reserve. Because we all know the value it has in terms of environment. We all know the accelerated reduction of our forests. So we cannot just allow this to go. I think that we need an independent
and just on that point, I'd like to take your final thoughts on this. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa last week called for the cessation of the return of lands to so-called original owners. Should we be considering that as well?
I would align with him.
Well,
I would align with him. I mean, even in the first instance, I wasn't quite sure. What does that mean? What are we saying? Wasn't that family fully compensated in the first place? What is in the best interest? In most places globally, international best practices has it that you have green belts surrounding cities. And that ensures, all the climate change issues have been dealt with. So why would we get rid of a green belt that serves several purposes? I think that I'll align with that recommendation that let's freeze this so-called declassification and return because already it's not even a week and we are finding other documentation that tells us that there may be other reasons and interests involved in this particular effort.
Well, would have to leave it there. I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. That's Adam Senanu, co-chair of the Citizen Movement Against Corruption.